Okay, well, for some of you that have been watching some of our content, you're probably like, who the crap are these guys? And why are they like giving us information? So we just wanted to give a quick rundown about who we are and what we've been doing. My name is Nick. My
name is John.
I run Wild Oak Films in Wichita, Kansas. I shot my first wedding in 2012, and in the summer of 2007, I was able to leave my full-time job and start doing wedding filmmaking full-time. So I've been doing it a little over a year.
2017, Nick, not 2007.
That's what I
Yeah.
said.
You'll see when you're editing this.
Probably right. So I've been doing full-time for about a year and a half. And John, why don't you introduce yourself?
Fine, I guess. No, I'm John with Redeemed Productions out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've been shooting weddings now since 2007, so like since I was 10. And so, so 2007 was our first couple. They celebrated their 10-year anniversary last year, so I'm officially like in my 11th, 12th wedding season now, something like that. We started out kind of more just saying yes to everybody. Now we're kind of a luxury boutique brand here in Tulsa. Most of our weddings are here, but we aim towards the high-end, high-profile type weddings that we have around here. And so we've been doing this for a while. I saw Nick online in some of the Facebook groups and thought, wow, his tutorials are awesome. His video editing is way better than mine. I want to reach out to him about how he does what he does. And through about 4 million texts, we were like, we should teach people. And Nick is really good at like shooting and editing and pretty good at business. I'm really good at business and pretty good at shooting and editing. So it was kind of like we could really help some people by, kind of just talking about what we're really good at. So that's kind of how we decided to get going. That was like what, January, February, we shot a wedding together. And then kind of slowly been releasing videos, just kind of getting a temperature for what people want to hear and what people want to see. And so that's what leads us to today.
Definitely. And, John says he's pretty good at business or good at business. He might be selling himself a little bit short in talking about that. Whenever him and I, kind of started these conversations and we were chatting a little bit about business and how to run business and talking about revenue and making money, the numbers that John was throwing out at me made my jaw drop. And if some of you are just kind of like, man, this guy is weird, why should I listen to him? Why don't you talk about, how much money you made last year and why is...
We're going to go there.
I mean, already, you said make this real and raw and authentic, right? And ask you anything. So why don't you talk about that? And I think it really validates you as a business owner and as you run business, why it is that people should listen to you.
Right. Well, humble brags are the best kinds of brag. So thank you for teeing the humble brag up for me. So I guess to say kind of the money that we're making, the things we're doing, I like to throw it out there too that we have built this brand from a $750 per wedding business to now sometimes over $14,000, $15,000 for just one video. And it's taken a really long time. We don't do sales in a way that is like car salesman, that typical Hollywood car salesman that just makes you feel like you need to take a bath when you're done talking to them. And so, that's just like the disclaimer is we're not this company. When you think about making a lot of money with weddings, a lot of times it's somebody that's really selling themselves short or not taking good care of brides. And so I just don't want people to think that to start with. As for revenues, what we're making, different things like that. On average right now, like I said, our base starting options are somewhere in the $5,000 to $6,000 range, and we have no limit on what people will charge or what people can, pay for our services. So, we have had weddings that are over $20,000, but I'd say the average right now this year is somewhere around $8,000 a wedding. Last year was around $6,500 a wedding, and last year we did somewhere, I think 39 weddings at that rate. So I'll let you do the math or whatever. But I will say too that this year we raised the prices a ton. And on my board over there, we're at 28 video weddings for the year. About 5 years ago, I started doing photography as well. So we hired a photography manager. And so that in itself is its own six-figure business within our business. So last year we did 29 weddings. This year we're at 21. So, but on average, like the last few years, we've brought in anywhere from $400,000 to $600,000 a year as a company. So, not quite the $1 million range yet, but really doing our best to like really get as much per wedding as possible, but in a way that's not salesy or weird. After realizing and talking to a bunch of people about like how much they were making and how they were struggling, it was like, man, maybe there's something I can do to help them grow not only their creativity but the bank account. And I think we forget about that a lot. And like we're so worried about like the drone shot or the color grading or that we forget that it's like, oh, this is actually a business, and how can we, make as much in a non-sleazy car salesman kind of way.
Right.
So
I was, my wife and I, we were in Denver a few weeks ago. We met with Kayla and Christina White and Reverie, and we were
Name
just
drop.
having yeah. But as I was talking to Christy, one of the things that was really interesting that she was saying was, this profession is so diverse in what people want, because you have people that are in it 100% for the art. Like,
Yep.
I make these wedding videos because my videos are beautiful and they're one of a kind of thing. And then you have people who, kind of like Jordan Bunch with his volume brand, right? He's like, I have this thing and we're very formulaic in what we put together, but we make a lot of money and we're really good at the business stuff. And then you kind of have people in the middle that kind of sway. So it's just kind of a interesting thing, because if you're 100% in it for the art, then the business stuff definitely lacks. Or you think, oh, you know what, I don't need to be good at sales, or I don't really need to worry about packages or whatever, because my art speaks for itself and my art will sell itself, which, by the way, it really doesn't.
Right. And that's
it really doesn't.
Like for me, our films, like when brides see our films, they freaking love them. They're beautiful. But I wouldn't say that like the films are just so blow your socks off kind of films. They're very, I work on good composition, good lighting, great audio. And so like the work has to back up the fact that we're charging $10,000 for a wedding film. But like what I've realized over the years, and as I raised my prices, it was all about building the brand more so than building, just this reel. I've never done like a highlight reel for the year. I've never done, like any of that kind of stuff. I really always look at like, is it making me money? Is it going to make me money? I'm very long-term thinking, so I do a lot of things that like I knew that 3 years later would make me money, or that kind of thing. But there is a definite balance between the art and the business, and trying to like cross those over in a way that is going to put as much in your bank account and make you as happy as a person. Because the be-all, end-all goal isn't always like, hey, can I make a 6-figure income, or can I, it's nice to make the money, but like if you're doing something that you hate while you're doing it, what's the point? You're going to burn out. So I do want to throw out too that like I love shooting weddings, and I love like telling stories, meeting with the couples. That's a ton of fun for me. And so on the business side, I've really developed over the years, just realizing like it's more fun for me to shoot 25 weddings at $10,000 than it is to shoot 50 weddings at $5,000. And because I have more time with the couples. And so like that took a while. 2 years ago, I shot 52 weddings. Last year I shot 39, and this year I'm at 28, and I'm like the happiest I've ever been. So just throw that out there.
Yeah. No, that's really good. It's definitely a balance that you have to figure out as a filmmaker, as a business owner, what you want to do. There are like, there's a guy in town that I know that he puts out really great content, and he wants to shoot, about 40 weddings a year. Like, and for him, it is just, I can't stand not being busy. He's like, I just, and there are people like that, and that's perfectly okay. But that's just a question that you need to answer yourself. So
Sure.
One thing is, we've been talking, I am, for my pricing and my models, we're really under a package model, where we have, top, middle, and base package set up pretty well. But I know that you've kind of started doing something different with your pricing and how you do that. So why don't you kind of share about your pricing model?
So like I've seen all over the forums, like everybody talking about like the a la carte models and different things like that. And I think it's, you really have to look at your business and what you're wanting to do and where you're at in your business. Like I have a brand behind, Redeemed Productions in Tulsa means something. And so people come to me like my friends have used you, my friends' friends have used you. I've followed you for 7 years. I knew I was going to book you the day I got engaged. I got engaged Friday. It's Monday. Are you available this day? If not, I'll move my day. That's half of the people now, which is incredible. And so like this time last year, we were doing packages that like topped out at $69.50. There were add-ons, but like the most I could get out of a wedding was $8,000 or $9,000. And don't get me wrong, that's like more than, enough for a wedding day. But I started looking at the clientele, and as we had been building and branding and kind of our clientele, the goal we're looking for were the high-end clients in the Tulsa, Dallas, Oklahoma City kind of area. As we started to work with them, they'd be like, yeah, we'll take your biggest package. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And they wouldn't blink about it. And it was like, I could just tell I was leaving money on the table. And I just hated the idea of packages because it just didn't work for me. I didn't feel like I could be as personal with the couple. And so it was just kind of like, I got to figure something out different. And then I heard Amber's podcast, Amber Baird, with Jordan on Wedding Film Academy. And she was talking about a la carte. And so I just reached out to a couple people that were doing it and said, what are you doing? A couple of photographer friends. And so this time last year, I went from having packages to basically just having like a base starting is, $49.50, get you 2 shooters for 7 hours and a 6-minute film. That's it. So like for $5,000, that's what someone gets. And I let them know, we can get into that a little bit more, but it's going to be more than that most likely. It's really hard to know your timeline today. Let's get you booked. I'll give you a ballpark of what it's going to end up costing, but it's basically that. It's just a starting point, a $49.50 for 2 shooters for 7 hours, and then we have everything else is just an add-on. Obviously, I don't line that out with them every single time. Like I don't send them a pricing sheet. I tell them we don't have packages. I just say, hey, it's going to be somewhere between this and this. And I know that doesn't work with a lot of, it can't work with, especially people that are paying for it themselves or have like a $2,000 budget and they're like, this is how much I have to spend, what can I buy? But to me, I say, how do we know your timeline this far out? It's 11 months from your wedding. We know the ceremony's this time. I can guess it's going to be about 8 hours, which is $5,600. It's $700 an hour is kind of, and that's how I kind of throw it out to them is like $700 an hour. I let them do the math. If they need me for 10 hours, it's going to be $7,000. If they need me for 12 hours, it's going to be $8,400. And so, we had a wedding in June that they needed us for 16 hours. You shot it with us, and so 16 hours times 700, and then you do the math, it's like, okay, 7,000, 4,200, that's 11,200 just for the shooting. Now we can get to other things, other products that we're wanting to sell them. And so I look at it as like the base. First thing I'm trying to do is to get them to know us, to know our brand, to know our company, kind of gauge their budget. And then like from there, I will basically say, hey, we do these things. They're add-ons. We'll talk about ceremony doc edits. We'll talk about all of the things that you can add on, raw footage. And I just kind of walk with them and hold their hand. But the first conversation is kind of just get them used to the sticker shock of the cost, knowing, hey, it's probably going to be between $6,000 and $8,000. After talking to you, hearing your timeline, you can bet it's going to be somewhere in there. But like to me, the first meeting, I'm just really trying to get them to see, yes, we want to book John. We love him. I'm doing everything I can to show them the value that I add with the 500 plus weddings that I've shot, with helping them walk through a timeline and helping them. And so like you guys just need to today kind of figure out whether or not you're wanting to book us. And this is what I've been changing a lot is like, I just do a simple date reservation form now and $1,000 retainer. And that's what most people are booking right now without booking a package, knowing that it's going to be somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000. And they're like, okay, that makes sense. And I say, it's really impossible to know how much time you're going to need until we get a little closer. So 6 months out, we'll do another kind of meeting. We'll try to set an initial package at that time. And what that does, and we've talked about it in a couple of the videos before, but that gives me, usually it's a year out, 10 months out for me. So they book $1,000 reservation. It gives me 2 or 3 months to build rapport with them before saying, okay, let's grab coffee again. Let's walk through the timeline you have. And then we can say, okay, right now we know we were going to need 9 hours of time based on everything that you said. And so that is around $6,300, just a reminder. We'll go ahead and set that package up today, set your payments, for that kind of thing today. And then as we even get closer, 3 months out, we'll meet again, that 3-month checkup video. We could even link it right there. Huh? No? Anyway.
I mean, we can. It'll be in one of those corners.
Okay, yeah, like right there. But anyway, like 3 months out, we'll meet again. And like I'm just walking through, and I always want mom and the wedding planner to be there just to say, hey, and I'm never hiding anything from them. If they want to know all the prices to everything right up front, I can say, hey, a ceremony dock edit's $500, aerial coverage is $500, a USB is $500. And so as they get to know me better, and if I'm boring you, Nick, as they get to know me better, I can add other things to it. So like my current, you asked just like, what are the packages? It's like $4,900 to start with, $1,000 reservation. Most people have $2,000 to $4,000 of add-ons as we get closer. And then after the wedding, we even do the same thing where it's like, hey, your wedding was great. You're supposed to get an 8-minute film. It's $350 more for every 2 minutes. I'll start editing it, break it down into all the usable content, the audio. I'll text them, hey, I'm editing your film. Just so you know, you're getting an 8-minute film, but if there's extra, it's $350 every 2 minutes. And I'm never sticker shocking them like, you have to make a decision today to buy this thing. It's always, hey, this is just a suggestion based on now knowing you. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people, it's like, you don't need a ceremony doc edit. I know you don't. You're not going to want it. Let's give you the hard drive with the footage. You can watch through that. Like, later after the wedding, if you want us to edit it, we'll shoot it in a way that we can edit it. We always shoot the whole thing. And so, and I know that a lot of, like we were talking just about like your packages and just like how you don't feel right not including certain things and all that good stuff. So I'd love to hear your thoughts now that we've kind of talked a little bit about that, on how that...
Well, yeah, and thank you. I think you have a lot of great information there. I think that, again, it's one of those things where what's your purpose, or and that's just something that you I know there's some people hearing this, they're like, you mean you do an upsell for the ceremony?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's ridiculous. And if you believe that way, that's absolutely fine. I'm kind of more in that camp. Like, I would much rather charge more upfront and just include that rather than try to sell it or add it on later. Because at least in our area, I know that ceremony edit is just a part of the package, like for most people. And so that's kind of maybe my reservation in doing something like that, is the worry that someone isn't going to book me that really should book me or might want to book me, but here's this thing that they really want or they think they want or whatever that I'm not offering it. So I'm going to throw this back on you. So what would you say, to someone like that in my situation where I'm kind of skeptical to maybe go that route just because I know other people in my immediate area are offering it?
Right. So I used to include, in my $6,900 package, I used to include 12 hours of coverage, aerial coverage, raw footage, ceremony edit, speeches and first dances, toasts, like all the, full, everything I could offer. And it was just a ton of work. And I hated my life. Like there was too much for not enough is what it felt like. And so instead of raising my prices one year, I took a couple things out of that $6,900 just to see if people would still book it. And so I'm a big believer in like slow baby step transitions. I don't think you should like completely change your business model after hearing this conversation. I think you should let it soak in, maybe look at your business, look at where you're wanting to go. And so like 1 year, instead of saying, hey, we get everything in that $6,900 package, it was like, I'm going to pull out the toasts and the first dances, and I'm going to make it 8 hours instead of 12 hours and see if anybody blinks about it. And nobody really did. I mean, I know there were a few people that didn't book me, but like I looked at the time that was going to take to do the different things, and it's like, well, if I book 2 less weddings this year because of it, I'm like, I'm a much happier person as well. I feel like I can serve my clients better. But yeah, I mean, the ceremony edit, like that's like if a bride is like about to drop $8,000 with me and like the ceremony edits, what's going to get her to say yes? I will just throw it in, or I will be like, sure. I mean, so I'm not like a purist in the fact where it's like, I won't do what I need to do to close a bride or the sale. But I would say to people that are in like the skeptics camp, on the ceremony, I mean, there's always like the slow, like give it a, like see if anybody would balk, do a meeting or 2 without it and see like if that's something that really, makes them. And I don't know how much time you spend on a ceremony edit, but like, I mean, even with the live mode and the different, I mean, it's a couple hours of work.
Well, I've actually started with all of my doc edits like that. I started outsourcing that stuff.
Yeah.
Which is.
So what do you pay for that?
Well, okay, so currently in a few packages that we offer, they get the ceremony edit, they get the toasts, and then we put together a kind of more raw, like getting ready edit, which is basically when we show up to the ceremony, and then a reception edit, which is basically from the ceremony's over to we're through with the reception, minus the toasts. So.
Just tidy it up, make it look good.
Yeah, and both of those end up being, kind of depending on, if they write letters or do a first look, we include that in the, getting ready edit and that kind of stuff. So those, anywhere from 4 to 8 minutes for those. Yeah. But to do all that stuff, I found a guy, I pay him $250, to do that stuff, which for me is well worth it. Yeah. Because I've always hated doing, the doc edit kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think we all hate it. I mean, some people like it.
Oh, yeah.
But, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I mean, it's not like creative, very creative. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, I got to do their ceremony edit now. I thought I was done with the edit. And so to me, like, I just always go back to the numbers and looking at it. And it's like, so if you're doing 25 weddings or 20 weddings at $250 a piece that you're paying out, I mean, what is that? How much is that? 250, 10 weddings is 2,500. So $5,000 you're spending to have that done. Mm-hmm. Right. And my question would be like, how many weddings would you miss out by not doing that? Or even better, like the way I go about it right now, instead of saying like, you can't have that. So if I'm sitting here talking to you and Jen about like your wedding film and say, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to film the ceremony in its entirety. So if we want to add that later, we can. I don't really like to worry about that right now because I'm going to include all the best parts from your ceremony. I'm including your vows. I'm including, anything great that the officiant says. It's way more, entertaining. You're going to enjoy it. If after the wedding you still want the ceremony edit, we can always edit that for you, or we can get you a hard drive with the footage so you can just watch through the angles. It's annoying to pay for that right now. If you do end up wanting it, it's $500. And so like, I would say like 2 or 3 out of 10 at it, but I've never not booked, my clients aren't not booking me because of it. I think it's just how you spin it, where it's like, yeah, I mean, we can do that for you. It's not, a big deal, but it's like, we're giving you everything.
And I think that also that's a thing where we're kind of coming at this from a little bit different, we're talking about the art versus the business kind of thing. And so since you don't offer the ceremony, I mean, that's a paid upgrade, right? Mm-hmm. So you feel like you really need to include in their video, you need to include vows, or you need to include stuff the officiant
sometimes
says because they're not buying that. Whereas me, because I know they're getting the ceremony edit and I know they're getting the toasts and stuff, I don't have a problem not including anything from their ceremony except maybe coming down the aisle and the kiss or something like that, or not including any of their toasts because they didn't fit with the highlight film because I know that they're getting that stuff, right? Yeah. So I feel it's kind of freed me up to be more creative, but then you look at it, am I, leaving money on the table, or am I
and I'll say
doing myself a disservice by
I'll say this,
offering all this other stuff?
I go through and I delete anything and everything I can that I don't think is good for my creative edit. So like a lot of times I will include, a little bit of what the officiant would say or a prayer he would say just to include his voice, but like I'm not looking at like how can I include everything that this pastor said that was talking for 25 minutes. It's like I'm going to include a couple of things he says. And if I feel like it adds value, if it's not just the love chapter, or if it's not just, something that, but it's something a little more personal, I will add that into the edit or whatever. But like, yeah, I do think it's one of those things creatively, like I'm editing a wedding right now, and I only included a prayer from the officiant during the ceremony. I included the vows and that's it. They had good letters and they had good speeches, so it's like. But I will say this too, whenever I'm selling these kinds of things, like I'm letting the couple know that like most likely the video is going to end up longer than 8 minutes. And so as we're looking through it, if the ceremony has anything good in it, I am looking to be able to add that into the edit, where it's like, I don't want to try to, just for creativity's sake, have a 3-minute video that's just everything perfect. I'm thinking not how can I impress the wedding videographers groups. I'm thinking how can I make their family happy, 10 years from now. And if it's a 12-minute video that gets a little bit draggy to me, but it's everything that they would, I never get a bride saying, hey, did you get a shot of, like my, this thing that happened, or did you, I'm showing a little something of all of it. And that's, creatively, yes, I'm trying to show that in the best, but like, I'm not going to sacrifice the actual day just for creativity. If it's a wedding that I just really want to showcase and want to do something that's creative, I will even offer them, hey, I'm going to do a free 3 to 5 minute edit for you. But 99% of our brides are very happy with a 10 to 12 minute video instead of like a 3 to 4 minute video, a 3 to 5 minute video, because it includes more of the ceremony and because it includes more of what's going on during the day. If you're just watching it as like a wedding videographer on a group, it's like, okay, this is like a nice wedding film, but it's like, I get it. It's kind of getting long, but I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with posting that because the people I care about are the bride and their family, the groom and the family, and then potential brides. And the brides that want to book me, I've just noticed, it's like, they're the ones that are wanting to see all of the moments, and they contact me and they'll say, hey, I don't want something just super trendy that's going to look like 2018 in 10 years. I want something that's going to be a little more timeless and obviously still look super dope. But at the same time, it's just like, I feel like I do a pretty good job of like mixing the two, as opposed to just saying, well, I can either be creative or I can make you a long, like boring wedding film. Which
You
is,
say that in your meeting? I'm going to make
Yes.
you a long, boring video.
yes. And I will say this, honestly, I'm a purist in the fact that it's like I will not give them something that's longer than I think that it needs to be just to sell them more time. But like most of our videos end up between 10 and 14 minutes long. And I tell them that as we're talking, and it's like, you got 8 minutes right now. It's going to, be that. But if we have good toasts and you guys do letters and you do a first look with dad and your bridesmaids and all these moments during the day, I'm going to want to include them in your full feature. And then if they're doing like a 10 to 15 minute film, I'll be like, hey, we need to do a highlight film. This is too long for the internet to see. And then I will charge them $1,000 for a 3 to 5 minute film. And they're cool with it. Like, and I think a lot of it's just building that relationship. And I think as videographers, we suck at just including everything. Ray Roman says it all the time or whatever. We just like include everything. Oh yeah, we're going to buy the new drone and include aerial coverage, and we're going to do the rehearsal dinner, and we're going to give you this, and we're going to give you that. And as I started pulling things away from the package and seeing that like brides were still booking me, I was like really like impressed with the fact that like they kept booking us even though we didn't include that. And so like I got the taste of like, oh, they're paying me the same. I'm not doing the ceremony edit, and they're buying it afterwards. I'm going to take that because they see the value in what we're doing. That to me is kind of like, I know that sometimes when I'm talking, it kind of can come across as like I'm just after the money, but like what I'm really after is like preserving the value of what we're doing as a whole. Like I just feel like we feel like we have to give more. I mean, we all know that like videography takes a little bit more effort than the photography, but the value people put on photography, they can charge what we're charging or more. And I've seen it firsthand since we have photography. People are like, yeah, I've got to book a photographer. Sure, I'll pay that much. And then it's like, oh, do you include a drone? Why not? This guy includes a drone. Do you not include this? It's unlimited time. And so, go ahead, cut me off.
Well, yeah, a couple things I was going to say. One, whenever I first started, my wife was a photographer and I got into video. So I've seen both sides of it too. And the thing that always really frustrated me, which I'm wondering if a lot of people who are maybe just getting started out or wherever are feeling this, is that it seems like photographers can really do the upselling, right? They can add an album, they can do prints, they can do, all this other stuff. And I, for a long time, thought, well, all I can give them is a USB or a DVD.
Right.
And it's just kind of shifting your way of thinking of, you can make all of this stuff add-ons. Like, you can upsell them on all this other stuff. Like, there isn't a finite amount of money. I don't know if it was Ray Roman that I heard him talk one time, but he was very much like, or at least the idea is, don't give a cap on how much they can spend.
Exactly.
Which I know is one of your things about kind of why, I wouldn't say necessarily that you're against packages, but a big knock against them is that they can't spend more. Like, if you have a bride that is able to spend $10,000 on a wedding video and your package is $4.5,
that's what they go with. And I've had that happen for years and years and years.
And that's what they're going to spend. And so you're limiting yourself, is what you're saying. Now, kind of the camp that I fall into, and I touched a little bit about this, but we're big into, these memories aren't our memories. They're our clients' memories. And so that's kind of why we've started, why we include, the ceremony and the toast. And we've started putting out, these kind of little doc edits. But I think maybe my fear is that now that I've been doing it for a while, is that I'm not charging it. Like, I was thinking, hey, I charge a premium price and they get all this stuff. But I'm thinking that maybe my premium price isn't premium enough.
Sure. And it's a game of, it's a game of just testing.
And I guess you don't know that until you actually get your pricing in front of people and talk to people and share with them and all that stuff. And so this also leads me to another thought. For a while, whenever I did my sales calls and my sales meeting, I wouldn't send my pricing ahead of time. I would, go over it with them whenever we had our meeting, and I was doing all my stuff online through Skype, and I would share my call and, show them the pricing and that kind of stuff. And I mean, I think it seemed to be kind of successful to do it that way, but what I was realizing was that I was spending 30, 45 minutes, an hour of my time meeting with these couples, going over this pricing, just for them to say, I'm sorry, you're too expensive.
Right.
So I mean, so I like your idea of, you told me the other day, or maybe it was in a videography group, that you had a bride email you at 6:30, you texted her at 7:30, you had a phone call with her at 7:45, and she had her $1,000 retainer paid before 8. I mean, like really like that quick. Yeah. So can you kind of talk me through, kind of maybe your initial call that you make, to try to get them so that they'll, put in that $1,000 retainer.
Yeah. So to start with, our website, and I would encourage you on your website to only show the work, like besides like your blog, to the kinds of clients that you want to book. And so if you go to redeemedproductions.com, I mean, the weddings that you're going to see are some very high-end weddings. You're going to see, our Yosemite wedding that we did, showing people we travel. You're going to see our Hawaii wedding, our Montana wedding. You're going to you get the vibe that, like, they do expensive weddings and they travel is kind of the first thing. And every page leads you to my contact form. And at the contact form, it says, starting at $49.50, locally starting at $49.50 for video and $44.50 for photo or whatever. And so like I'm trying my best to vet as many people as possible before they call me to let them know. And still people contact me all the time and they're like, I got a $1,500 budget. And it's like, great, I can't help you, but here's my friend Nick over at Wild Oak Films that I got. I'm just kidding. But like
maybe if it were 1,600.
Yeah, 1650. But yeah, I mean, it's like I'm trying my best to get them to see that we're expensive. And honestly, I want to be the most expensive as possible. So when people know, like, oh, you've hired Redeemed Productions, it's like, whoa, okay, you hired Redeemed Productions. You're really like going all out on your wedding. Because I remind you, most of us only want like 20 or 25 couples a year. And so I'm trying to niche market to exactly the bride that has that budget, that wants a really nice video, that has seen the brand that we've built, and if they've contacted us, that's my ideal to happen. And so I'm sure a lot of people don't contact us because they see that, and I'm okay with that. And so I had to test that out. But like, so I have my starting price $49.50 right on my website. But if somebody does contact us, we get an email like everybody, and on there I have a couple of things, mainly like what's your story is one of the big ones. If they're not willing to like write, a little bit about themselves, I'm not willing, if all they say is what's your pricing, it's a different story than like, oh, here's our story. I have them select a budget, like a video budget, and it starts out $4,500 to $6,500. So they have to at least select that. Again, another layer knowing, hey, it's expensive. And so, I want them to know for sure before they contact me that price. And so, but if they've sent me an inquiry, I get the email, I usually immediately will shoot them a text. I keep like a second cell phone just for my company, just so I can have it all like saved in there instead of like a Google Voice number or something. But like, I send them a text and say, hey, this is John with Redeemed Productions. I have an auto text saved in here. So if I type in, hey, like if I just type in the word hey, it says, hey, this is John with Redeemed Productions, and has like a little like thing. So I just type in the word hey, and then I write their name after the word hey. Hey, Kristen, this is John with Redeemed Productions. I saw you contacted us about the wedding. So excited. What was the date again? I know what the date is, but I'm just double confirming that's the date. And they immediately are like, oh, the date's this day, and so like it gets them like engaged in conversation. And at that point, I send them a few texts just like, well, cool, I don't want to bug you, but like, the venue, tell me, if you have a minute, tell me, do you have time tomorrow to maybe talk on the phone? Do you have time now to talk on the phone, depending on the time of the day? And my goal is just to get, a conversation going with them, show them that I'm a real person, show them that I'm going to care about them for their wedding. And to me, I do really good in person. So like, I just feel like there's something about like just being in the same room. So I invite them to come in for a quick 30-minute consultation. If I can get them in the room, the chances of me booking them go way, way up. But so yeah, I mean, that's the basics. What am I missing out? Anything else you want to know?
So obviously, if you on your contact form, you put 4,500 to 60 whatever 100.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's your lowest option, then there are obviously going to be people that don't have that budget, but they still really want to, and they just want to talk to you, so they pick that amount.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when do you have that conversation, or do you just, whenever you get them in person and you say,
no.
hey,
yeah. So first of all, I will talk for a little bit. I don't like to get them into a definite, like, we have to spend this much, because they just don't know. Like, they don't know. They're just picking because they've had other price shopping, other videographer charged this. And so I am trying to gauge like who their vendors are, where they're getting married. If they're getting married, in Tulsa at Southern Hills Country Club, I know that they're like dropping some money on their wedding. So that helps me, I always say, where's the venue? Are you having a DJ or a band? That's a big one to know whether or not, and at that point, you're just trying to understand who their florist is, if they have any other references, like who's their friend that knows us. If it's a wedding that we did that was also a ridiculous wedding, and they're like, oh, we were in the same sorority, and we're, it's like, okay, all these things are like making it where I don't really have to ask them their budget, because I don't want to like limit them to what they can spend. I will say, like, we started this, but like, it's very customizable. We don't have packages. And so like, I'm just slowly getting closer and treading, like lightly and not trying to say, this is, because most, like all of us get the package, like, what are your packages? What are your prices? And I mean, that's, you get the message on Facebook, hey, this is Jenny. What are your prices? And are you available on this date? And it's like, hey, and I'm just trying to be like, that's so cool. How'd you guys hear about us? And then they respond, how they heard, oh, where's the venue? Oh, cool. Like, I'm trying my best to like build any type of rapport first. And it's like, on prices, we are expensive, but you're going to get what you pay for. And they're like, yeah, we totally understand that. Like, and so people, if you slowly get them to that point where it's like, okay, then I give them a ballpark, like, and I don't say, hey, you're going to spend $8,650 for this package with us. That's too much to stomach. People aren't going to book that. So I just say it averages about $700 an hour. I don't know exactly how much it's going to cost. It would be better if we got together and I could help build a timeline for your day with you to kind of give you a more accurate, price range. And so I do say we start at $49.50. That's 2 shooters for 7 hours and a feature film. I try to give as little detail, enough to get them to want to talk to me in person. If all I am is text behind a screen, I'm just that. It's data on a spreadsheet. And like, that's not what I want to be, And so sometimes people are like, yeah, that's great, but how much are the prices? And, like, well, what's your packages? And I'll say, I don't have packages. We start at $49.50. And a lot of times they're like, okay, that's way above my budget. And it's like, okay, well, cool. Like totally fine. But the people that I've booked this last 2 years now know that we're expensive. We've branded ourselves that way and know that like, if they want the quality that we offer, they're going to pay for it. So it's a slow, steady, I never give out like, and I think that even like for people with packages, I think it's just kind of limits you whenever like, oh, here's my link to my pricing. Well, all they're doing is like comparing that against another pricing sheet and say, well, for this guy, I get all these things, but I'm selling me, like the brand of me, and you're going to have me at your wedding. And like, I've done 500 weddings. I'm going to take great care of you. I'm a mother hen. I'm going to make sure that nobody screws you over. I'm going to help you with your timeline. Your days, look at all these reviews. Look at 100 reviews on Facebook and 30 on Google and 100 on WeddingWire. Like, who do you know that's used us? Call them, ask them about working with us. And so like, that's what I'm selling is like, you're going to get an expert. You're going to be taken great care of. And people at the higher end of the market don't want anything else but that. They just want to know that like they're going to have the best quality video. They're not going to have to worry about it. It's going to be taken great care of. And so that's where like when I started transitioning past the like $3,000 mark, which was the most difficult mark for me, like the clients got easier and easier to like communicate to. A lot of them, their parents are paying for it, and they just kind of are looking. Like they don't have a super finite budget. So it's a lot of just treading and seeing, where they sit with different things. And if they're like, my parents have given me a $5,000 budget, it's like, okay, I can work with that. Here's what I can do for you. Or my parents give me a $4,000 budget. And it's like, okay, well, have you thought about like you doing 1,000 on top of their 4,000 and you could get, and they're like, oh, no, we didn't. Or, I will walk them through, and I never am discounting the price. Like I never just say, hey, it's $3,000 for you. It'll be, I can throw these things in or I can take these things out to give you a lower, like, if they say we have a $4,500 budget, okay, cool, we'll have our second shooter leave an hour early and we can get you down from $4,900 to $4,500 or something like that.
So whenever you kind of set up this meeting, whenever you're texting, right, with your clients, to try and basically get an in-person or a phone call, however you want to do that.
Right.
So are you confirming with them, that, kind of your base, is $49.50? Like, are you at least, so that way, that they know that cost for sure. And,
yeah.
You have communicated it with them so that you frame it, I don't want to waste your time, but you're really thinking about yourself. You don't want to waste your time.
So I don't lead with that, but definitely I slide that in. Like if you've seen our prices, I won't say $49.50. I will say, it averages around $700 an hour. I don't try to be vague or misleading, but like I know that they don't know what I can do for them. And like, I think that we assume that like
Okay,
the
so
brides
okay,
know that.
so so whenever you put 49.50, you're just putting that as you're basically kind of breaking that out as hours.
Letting them know that yes, like I mean, the base that I'll come out to a wedding for, like my happy price is $5,000. So 49.50, that's my happy price. So like that's two shooters for 7 hours, and I know that is like my price. So like that's what that costs. So that's a little bit. It's like 700 some odd dollars an hour, $705 an hour, something like that. But it's an additional $700 an hour to add to make it an 8 hour day or a nine. And so like I know that if they want to do 10 hours plus a 10-minute film instead of the 6 to 8 minute one they get, plus a rehearsal dinner, that they're going to spend like $8,500. But I'm not going to tell them all that because it's too much to handle, like comprehension wise. Like they're just trying to figure out if they like me. And so that's what I'm trying to aim for is like, hey, our base is this much. Let's just see if we get the warm feelies about each other. And if we like each other, you like me, I like you, we might not be a good fit, but like, why don't we just get together and like hear about your wedding. I'm building rapport with them. Okay, we built a timeline together now. So like I'll walk through, when do you think you want to do the ceremony? Do you want to do a first look? Here's some pros and cons. And I'm just building rapport instead of just saying, how many hours do you need? They don't know. Nobody knows. It's 10 months away. They've never gotten married, maybe once or twice before, but not a lot of times. And like, so my goal is to just hold their hand and make them feel like they can't do their wedding without me.
So what do you do about the length of film then? Like if you say, we charge $700 an hour. I know you don't have your timeline ready yet, but you kind of thinking, and then they say, okay, so how long of film do I get? Because in their mind, they might be thinking, oh, 700, I can have them there for 3 hours. That's $2,100. And then if you're telling them, a 7-minute film, I mean, and obviously you're not going to come out for just 3 hours, but I mean, how do you go about?
Yeah, I tell them we're a minimum of 7 hours. I mean, that's we'll do 6 hours, but like you just can't get what you need. So like I just let them know most of the time it's 7 hours minimum of time. And then I say usually every hour that we're there yields a minute to a minute and a half worth of edited film. And I always just leave it because I don't actually know the answer. Instead of trying to put that into a finite box for them, it's like most likely it's going to be between an 8 to 12 minute film. And they're happy with that. If they're like, well, what are your prices? And I say, I don't have any. They're like, oh, okay, well, what do you do? It's like their mind gets out of the box that they think is how you do it. And so I've just seen that it's like, as I educate them along the process, where it's like, hey, we're going to start, number one thing, do you like me? Do we like you? Give you a ballpark between $6,000 and $7,000, $4,000 and $6,000, whatever it is, based on their day. Like I just booked a Friday June wedding that they only need us for 6 hours, and I booked them for $4,500 because it's like that's what they needed. It's a Friday. It's not going to like block up, a Saturday. So it just worked. I'm flexible, but like, I walk them through that and say, okay, the first thing, do you like me? Do we like you? $1,000 reserves your day and goes towards the grand total. We'll get back together in 3 months. Once your timeline's a little bit, more confirmed, we will text and talk a million times between them. You can ask me any questions. You have a hotline straight to us. Any questions, we're here for you. Your family, you're in. I make them feel very welcomed. Then, by the time 6 months gets there, hey, let's go grab a drink or coffee or dinner or come to the office or whatever. We walk through what they have for the timeline, tell them, different things they might want to be thinking about, give them some tips and tricks and like, oh, you might want to make sure that, your save the date says this or whatever. And then it's like, okay, let's look at the timeline. It's looking like 8 hours right now. Let's go ahead and build that, to have 3 or 4 payments leading up to the wedding with that. If we need to add more stuff, we're going to meet at 3 months and we're going to meet at 10 days to a week out from your wedding. So we're going to know everything by then. And
Right.
that's all the assurance that they're looking for. Is just like, oh, we now know that like the ceremony's at 6. Okay, cool. Well, here's how your timeline shifts. We're not doing a first look. Okay, cool. Sunset's here. First look isn't happening. So these photos, this is your suggestion. 8 hours, 7 hours. Cool. Let's do that. Reminding them like, hey, is the film, does it need to be a little bit long? Like it might be a little bit longer depending, you said that you're going to have 3 speeches and you're going to do a first look with your dad and a first look with your groom. Like, so it might end up being like a 10-minute film, but I'm not going to charge you for that right now. Just keep it in the back of your mind. I don't want to charge you for something that you're not going to need. That builds rapport. I'm not trying to sell them now, but just know as we get closer, and then in the 3-month, hey, have you thought about the rehearsal dinner? All the speeches are happening then. We might want to add that on. It's this much more. We've got mom, we've got wedding planner, and me saying, the rehearsal dinner is very important. If the main speeches are happening there, please have me there for 2 hours, max. And it's usually $1,500. You guys have been great. I'm going to do it for $800. And they're like, wow, thank you. Or I'm going to throw it in, depending on what they're already spending.
Right, exactly.
It's like I booked one at Southern Hills for November, and I just threw in the $1,500 rehearsal dinner because they were going to spend $8,000 on a Saturday in November that I wasn't booked already 2 weeks ago. And I was like, I'll give you the rehearsal dinner if you guys, book us. So I'm just looking at like my calendar. I'm figuring all that out around. If it's a Saturday in June, I'm not really giving you too many discounts. If it's a Thursday in January, let's work on something.
Right, exactly.
And so yeah, I mean that's the point, I guess, though, is the slow build, and it just takes more time and more work. But I would rather do that work to take a wedding.
And I think that really harkens back to what you were saying earlier about not trying to be a sleazy salesman. I mean,
right.
You are being a salesman, and I think you're being a good one, but you're not doing it in a way, like you're being very upfront with them, saying, hey, this is about what we charge per hour. So they have they can figure it out. If you're $700 an hour and I need you there for 10 hours, that's $7,000. Like,
right.
They can figure that out if they want to. And you do let them know, we do charge for these other things. We can get into that later. Most couples don't even, worry about this thing. So, yeah. But you're still educating them. So it's not like you're telling them, oh, this 7 hours on a wedding day gets you everything you need and you don't need anything more. And then after the wedding, you're like, oh, here's $10,000 in upcharges that I'd like you to buy, and you totally blindside them. So you're doing the good thing that a good both videographer and salesman do, is educating them along the way and keeping them in communication. And I'm sure that talking with them, from the book date to that 6-month date, and then that 6 months to that 3-month date, even if you're just checking in once a week or every couple weeks or, whatever. And I'm not like saying be best friends with them every day, but, touching base with them every now and then, I'm sure that has really helped your sales process, and also helped, you just knowing them on the wedding day. I've always been, I'm pretty sure it's just kind of one of your God-given gifts that you have, just to be able to talk to people and joke with them and have fun with them and that kind of stuff. But I'm sure that it helps that you've built some sort of, rapport that way, at least talking with them and texting with them and, meeting with them a couple of times.
Yeah, they love us before the wedding day even happens. Like, I mean,
that should be the goal. Like, that should be the big goal, instead of just showing up. Oh, hey, Bill the groom, it's nice to finally meet you for this first time. By the way, I'm going to have you do all of this stuff and get dressed in front of me and walk.
Right.
Don't like that.
Like last Saturday, Jeremy, our groom, like when I walked in, I was like, "What's up?" And we hugged, and it was like, "Man, it's your wedding day. I can't believe it's finally here." Like, we've been talking for a year. I'd met him like 5 different times. And so, like, I'm not saying that there isn't more work. It's not like you can just change your prices to a la carte or something, and it's like, oh, now I charge $7,500 for a wedding. But, I mean, we do build that relationship. And, I mean, like right now we have like 10 weddings left this year and already 9 booked next year. So, like 19 brides to kind of be communicating with. And so from time to time, we'll DM them on Instagram, or like, they post a photo on their Instagram. It's like, oh my gosh, we're so excited, or, and like we're friends on Facebook. And I mean, I'm doing everything I can to like show them that I'm just a dude that loves my family, that loves God, and loves shooting weddings. Like, that's all I want them to know.
Yeah.
And so like, from I guess looking at that, like, I will always, if they want prices, like, I'm not afraid to share my prices. But I will let them know, like, these are some of the things. It's $500 for this, $500 for that. And I can send them my pricing sheet after we've talked a little bit. I just don't want them to see that first. Like if
Right.
they see that first, there's no way they're going to book. Like, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. They don't see the personality behind the brand. They don't see, my heart. They don't hear, what I can do for them on their wedding day. And I can get like in this zone when I'm talking to them just about like, I can't film you in your most vulnerable state if I don't know you. And so like I can really touch their heartstrings and say, who's important to you? What are the relationships? Is your dad close to you? If not, like, I mean, we're going to get close. We're going to, like, that's kind of, as we're talking. And I will say, like, out of 100 inquiries, we book like 10 of them, like we're not booking, a ton of these people. We get a lot of people that are like, oh, that's outside of the budget, or, oh, that's, which is fine, and it's like, if they can't, do the minimum, it's okay. Like, it's okay to say no to people. And that was the hardest thing for me. Like this year when I switched, like we didn't have a wedding from June 9th until August 18th. Like
Yeah.
June 9th to August 8th, summertime, when weddings happen, I was like all caught up on edits. I took 3 weeks off, like 3 real weeks of just like in the middle of summertime with my kids and family. And like that's, as a person that wants to be busy, really hard to do. I mean, I felt like my self-worth like went down and like wanted to get depressed because I didn't have a wedding to edit or something. And then I realized like, this is really awesome. Like, I don't have a wedding to edit. Like, August 18th is 3 weeks away. I'm just going to take off for the rest of the summer. Like, I'm good. I booked a few weddings. I mean, I did a little bit of work, but like saying no is okay. I mean, I know you have to pay your bills. And so like, there's the balance between, okay, I'm going to say yes to this client, knowing that I'm saying no to the next one, or, and that's how I've slowly made just like I'm slowly raising my prices. I mean, that's just, it's a slow transition where it's like, oh, I'm going to try to raise it by $300 or take this thing off. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, I'll change it. But I've never had any like, it's always continually just slowly gone up. It's never been like I went from $700 to $4,000. It's a,
Right.
that took
Right.
3 years, and
Right.
so.
And I think that's the thing that a lot of people starting out just don't get is you're not, your first wedding film is not going to look like someone's 100th that's been doing
Sure.
this for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's same thing as going business. You're not going to go, very, very, very few people go from their first film where they did it for free to now they're charging $5,000.
Right.
It's a very, very, that person is a unicorn that does that. And
Sure.
so it's a very slow build. And branding is important. Knowing what your brand is, which is probably another video that we can, do sometime in the future. Knowing who you are, knowing what's important to you and your values and your mission statement, and that kind of stuff, so that you can get those the right clients.
I hope it was helpful to anybody out there. I obviously, my insecurity wants people to know that like I'm not just like the salesy guy, and my heart is to help people to get out of their own way and realize that like they might not be able to even afford themselves. If you're good at what you do and you are offering a high quality product, don't sell yourself short. At least give it a try. Bump yourself. Like always be pushing yourself to not only just charging more but doing better.
And even baby stuff. Like we went from, like I've raised my prices I think twice this year, and I just do a little so I went from $3,000 for my middle package to $3,300, and I just recently raised it to $3,500.
Yeah.
Like every couple of bookings, just going up a little bit. And I think that that's something that maybe is lost in a lot of people, that they hear you need to raise your prices, you need to raise your prices. And yes, I am a proponent for that.
Sure.
Because not only does it help you, but it also helps your brand in your community as well. Like you just raising the standard maybe in the little circle that you live in. But for me to go from $3,000 to automatically now the same package is $4,500, like that's a huge jump.
Yeah.
And I'm like a totally different clientele and a totally different, whatever. So raising it by $100, a couple $100, $300, every second or third or fourth booking is a way to start creeping up a little bit.
Definitely. Well, it's one of those deals where it's not an exact science. We've gone up. We've never had to go down on our prices, but we have added more things in to make it worth it. I would just, if I were, in the shoes of a newer shooter or a newer videographer, Like, look at your numbers. Most people just kind of whatever happens, happens. But it's like, I want 25 weddings. I want to make, $75,000. That means I need to charge $3,000 a wedding, or whatever it is. Look at those numbers. How many do we have booked? How many? I have a running sheet. It's like I have 28 weddings. The average is $8,600 some odd dollars per wedding. I know that we're going to make around 200 grand for weddings. Or, it's like I can look at that and say, if I don't book anything else the rest of the year, I'm golden. Or I need to book 3 more weddings in like October and January. Like, I need to do that. So let me make some, moves here and talk to some brides and see if we can work something out. Or, it's always just looking at it as a whole, not just looking at it like, well, I have great art, so people should be finding me. But we could go on and on. I want to do more videos like this. I think it would be cool if in the comments below, if you have a question for me or for Nick about like what we do, how we do this. I mean, I'm sure some questions have come up. Leave it below. Maybe we'll do one of these again in a week or two. We can talk about business. And I also know that for sure I want to talk to you, Nick, about some of the shooting techniques and the things like that. I know you just got those Practilites. I want to hear about those. So anyway, this has been fun for me. Hopefully it's been helpful. If you're still watching at this point, I mean, kudos to you, right? I mean, my goodness. So
you get a high five.
High five, digital high five. Nick, I'll let you wrap it up.
All right, well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that. Give us a thumbs up. Share this video with someone that you might think will find it beneficial. Until next time, see ya.